Let's get started with the questions.
What are effective weight loss strategies for individuals with busy schedules?
Here we are, back to the busy schedule question. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Everybody's busy, right? Everybody has their own schedule, and what you perceive as busy might be not very busy or way more busy than somebody else's perception. I get it. I want to appreciate it, but I also don't want to sign off on, if you are busy, that's a reason not to take care of your health and your wellness. So, the nutrition side of things is something that kind of happens or should be happening all the time. Just like your exercise, your mindfulness, your rest and recovery and everything else. So how do you do that effectively on a busy schedule? Well, the first thing is I think define what the schedule is. Like, what is the schedule? Because regardless of what the schedule is, your body has needs, your performance demands, or whatever you're doing from a performance perspective will create demands or needs for the body. And you're going to need to plug these holes, somehow. So understanding what the actual schedule is really important. And I think a lot of times when people get busy, they just default to, oh God, I'm so busy. And they start to plan less. And I don't mean that in a way like they just kind of throw up their hands. I just mean like, oh man, I have so many things to get through tomorrow. This goes back to our periodization talking about like, do you know what you're doing in a week from now? I think when you get super busy, I know when I do, like I get in the moment, I get focused, like blinders on, and I might not be able to see 3 hours
for sure
into front. I just need to get this project.
All of a sudden you're hungry.
And all of a sudden you're hungry, right? I think most people can relate to that. Or all of a sudden, like my workout just got sabotaged because that new project or that fire at work just happened and I have to put it out somehow. Some things are quote unquote unavoidable, but what isn't avoidable is the fact that your body has demands nutritionally, and you may be placing additional demands on your body through your exercise and, stress profiles and things like that. So we got to get a handle on it. So the question is like, what are the tips? Like what are the strategies that we can use?
Effective weight loss strategies for individuals with busy schedules. To me, that would be nutrition. I think, that's something that you can always focus on based on the demands and the stress that you're putting upon yourself. So if you're not going to be exercising, then make sure that you're getting in your protein. If you're going to be exercising, then put your carbohydrates around your exercise times, whether it's before or after. As far as where you're finding time to work out, maybe you're looking at your strength training program and maybe you're having to do it in the morning, or maybe you take a day off. And sometimes a few days off and getting some leisurely walk to and from your car to work or around the neighborhood after dinner or something like that. Maybe that's not as stressful on your body, and your body can actually thank you for that and downregulate.
Here's the thing with losing weight. Again, this is what I meant about the fundamental things. The basic stuff never really changes. Weight loss is it doesn't start and stop here, but it largely has to do with a energy balance equation, right? Obviously, if you want to lose weight, you're going to have to be in a deficit. However, if that was the case and that worked all the time, then everybody would lose the weight that they want to lose. It doesn't ever work like that. It's never solely about the food that we eat or how much. There are many other factors. We talk about them on the show all the time. But what can I manage? What are the strategies to managing and what are the strategies to managing those things? So I think first off is understanding where you currently are, right? Take the time. You're going to have to carve out some time in your busy schedule to understand where you currently lie. Try figuring out where your total daily energy expenditure is. It's super easy. Go direct to rdfguides.com and we have a TDE guide there. That'll tell you about how many calories, it'll help you work out about how many calories you need. And you can even kind of work through the macros there. That'll give you at least an idea of where you are now and where you should be shooting for, right? So that's a good place to start because now you have a goal. Right now you have something you can kind of put your finger on in terms of, well, I'm not eating enough calories, so I need to put more calories in my system. What are the strategies to doing that? Well, you're going to have to plan a little bit. I need to plan my shopping trip, right? So when I do go to the store, do I have a list of things that I know that are going to help me fulfill these needs? How do I know it needs to be on this list? I mean, you mentioned it, CC, like what do I choose? Well, this in my strategy, choose things that you know you can control, right? And are manageable both in the short and the long term. So like I'm going to eat more protein, right? That's a great one. For people that want to lose weight, almost 100% of the time, nearly 100% of the time, they should probably have more protein in their diet, right? Period. And that starts to offset a lot of things. We're not going to get into all of them on the show, but one of them is fulfilling the caloric intake need. Secondly, like how your body partitions macronutrients in order to metabolize those things, and where the fat burning sort of starts and stops, or the calorie burning sort of starts and stops. So that might be one way of looking at it. But again, like understanding what your needs are, right? For your ability to lose weight. If you are unaware of where that is or what those needs are, then what are we grasping at here? We're just hoping, and we're going to continue to come back when my schedule is so busy. Understanding what your needs are, I think, is an important strategy. Second part is you mentioned the movement piece. Like, how do I, for weight loss, it's never solely just about the foods that we eat. There's also like what's going on from an energy expenditure perspective. And obviously your movement plays a big part of that. You mentioned like maybe I'm taking walks at work at lunchtime, or maybe that's the movement that I can get in during the day. I can handle a conference call or sit in on one of those boring calls with 5 other people where I don't hardly even say anything. I just have to listen, can have the earbuds in, and I can be doing my walk in a quieter environment or something like that. That's one way to kind of manage that. But like, where am I going to put it in? Like, what am I going to do? And what is that going to look like? And if I'm not going to do it, then understand how that impacts other things. Let's not have an unrealistic expectation about how much weight I'm going to lose or not lose. Right now, I'm just focused on the protein. Because I know long-term, that's going to benefit me until I get to a point where now I'm ready to establish more of a regular exercise routine. So setting a realistic expectation about those things. Like, am I going to move more? If I'm going to exercise, start easy and work your way up. So again, not picking goals or setting expectations for yourself that ultimately you can't.
Are unrealistic.
You can't fulfill those. Right? I see that happen to people all the time. Well, I'm doing it this time. I'm 5 days a week, joining the gym, going to classes. But half the time, they never even get through the first week, right? And if they do, getting through that second week is, let's just say falls off exponentially. Like, they can't handle it. It's already, you're asking too much of yourself, and the first thing you're going to default to is that busy schedule when you don't feel like going, or when it gets too tough. So I think, again, managing your expectations, but setting realistic ones is super important.
Do you have any basic strength training tips suitable for beginners?
Got a ton of them. Let's handle them kind of one at a time. I mean, I would handle this question as like, what do you think the biggest misconceptions are, or the biggest, well, maybe put it this way. What are the biggest mistakes like beginner lifters make entering into a program?
Too much too soon. Too much too soon, and having unrealistic expectations. I'm going to the gym every single day.
Yeah, I think those are two of the biggest ones right there. Like, the first one being the expectation piece. Like, what do you reasonably expect to happen here? And having like that immediate and wanting that immediate gratification is a pitfall. It's a bit of a trap for sure.
I would agree as well. So as I'm coming out of a strength phase, let's say I max out on a squat at 300. As I come into the next
basic strength training tips.
Basic strength training tips. Yes. So for basic strength training, okay.
For beginners.
Doesn't matter what number you're at, right? The next time that you may come into that strength phase, you might be 5 or 10 pounds over. It does not mean that you are strength training, that you're all of a sudden going to be 50 to 100 pounds
and loads,
on a lift.
Okay.
It's nice about going low, slow, and making sure that your form is phenomenal. It's execution over weight, right? It is form over weight, meaning my execution and my intention in this lift are pristine. And from that movement, I am going to increase weight over time.
Setting reasonable expectations, I think, is a really important place to start. And I think the thing that people get carried away with is the too much too soon, that in a couple of different ways. One, that they think they need to be lifting more. And when I say more, I don't necessarily mean more weight yet. I'm talking like more volume. that they have to have all of these exercises done in order to hit all the things that are on the anatomy chart that hangs on the piece of equipment at the gym or whatever. Like when I do this exercise, I train these muscles, right? So, God, that's only 3, but I see all these other muscles, so I got to do the machine that hits those. I think that's a pitfall that a new lifter falls into. They have to have all these different exercises in order to get an effective strength building or like weightlifting or even bodybuilding type routine done. They're jumping in kind of too much too fast. Like the second part of that is like, how many reps and sets do I need to do? That's also, they're jumping into too much or more than they need to do. So not only are they trying to do all these exercises, they're going like, I have to do 3 sets of, this many repetitions on every one of these exercises. So I think that is a pitfall that folks fall into. And then I think the other part is like they're not allowing their body to respond to the stimulus that they're giving it. Again, given those other pitfalls we just talked about, they're not giving themselves enough time to recover in order to reap the rewards of the work that they're putting in with whatever exercises they're doing and however many reps and sets. So if I've got a new lifter, what I want them to understand, or somebody that's new to the gym, what I want them to understand is a couple of very key concepts. One is that the goal is to give the body the minimum effective dose possible in order to get the maximum result.
Beautiful.
And so that is oftentimes much less than what you might think, especially as a beginner. But this is also the advantage of being a beginner, or even a total novice at this that has very little skill or background in this at all, is that, man, you can get some really great results and probably way less work than you thought. However, the a part of it also needs to be is the intention that you're taking to it. And you were mentioning that, Jeff, a second ago, with something else there with regard to doing too much, but also like, if I go in with a really good plan and these are the exercises I got to do, this is the time I have to do it in, and I go in there and I'm really focused on every rep and the skill that's involved in doing that particular movement every single time, I'm going to be in a much better position to reap the rewards of what it is that I'm putting in. And going back to setting reasonable expectations, this is not something you're going to see overnight. However, I will add, like as a new person, you're probably going to see the results much quicker than you would see the person that's been doing it for a long time.
Love those novel gains.
Right? Yeah. It's like, this is exactly, it's like brand new to the body. The body's like, oh, I have to respond to this. And it does that fairly rapidly before it kind of slows down. And now you have to really manage a little bit more carefully. So what are the tips or strategies for the new lifter, the beginner? One is to, again, set some realistic expectations about a couple of things. Like, what are your goals? No, you're not going to put on 10 pounds of muscle in the first month. So like, what is reasonable? Again, that's very individual based on your goals, but set some realistic goals. A part of that goal setting is, how many times a week can I reasonably make it to the gym?
Absolutely.
But also, how many times a week do I really actually need to do this type of exercise in order to get the result for the goal that I'm looking for? If your goal is to put on some muscle and build some strength, as a beginner, you do not need to be at the gym 5 days a week.
Nope.
You can be at the gym 5 days a week. I'm not saying you shouldn't go. I'm saying you don't need to be there. If you organize your program right, 2 to 3 days a week is a really great place to start for the first couple of weeks. Then maybe you expand that into a few more days or another day or a couple of days. But you do not have to go on this huge body part split routine and be there 5 days a week. However, if you're like, no, I really need this in my life. Like, I need a distraction, or I need to be someplace other than home or someplace other than work.
It's physical and mental.
Yeah, dude, totally get it. In which case, you could be at the gym 5 days a week. You just want to manage that time effectively and not think that you have to do it all in those 5 days. So that comes with getting yourself on a program where you're managing the variables over the time that you have to spend. So again, you're giving yourself the minimal effective dose in order to get the maximal gains that you're looking for. So, strategies there are to be on a program that makes the most amount of sense for you. Now, here's the thing I will tell you, like, even the most advanced programs look very much similar to the beginner program in terms of like exercise selection. Look, we're all we're doing is we're doing some very specific movement patterns. So while I wouldn't advise like you go out and you choose the pro bodybuilder routine right now, what I will say is like the difference in exercise selection between that and the beginner routine probably isn't going to be very different. Just not get confused with that. It isn't the exercise that's being applied, right? It's not the bench press, right? It's the movement pattern, and more importantly, how they're doing that.
Frequency, intensity,
So,
sets, reps, everything.
I think the people get, especially for the beginner, they get lost in the sauce. So the strategy is, first off, don't get lost in the sauce. There's some really basic things or principles you need to understand. We just sort of covered those. What should that program look like again? If it's 3 to 5 days a week, hell, if it's 6 days a week, it's fine. You just need to manage those things. It shouldn't be these 3-hour marathon workouts if you're a newbie to this. We're managing things like volume. That is how much work you're doing. How many actual reps and sets are you doing in your workout? What's the intensity of that? Like how many, you'll hear us talk about like reps in reserve or perceived rate of exertion or rate of perceived exertion. And that can be challenged through your tempos and obviously the weight that you put on the bar or the dumbbell or this weight stack or whatever else. And I think that's what people, like they get lost with that. Like, oh, my weights went up. Oh, it should go up again. Yes, you should be progressively overloading your body. That's a basic principle or concept. You need to understand how that applies to you. So that's the concept, again, of progressive overload, parallel to the concept of individuality, which is parallel to the concept of the specificity of training. So you need to be choosing a program that helps you get to the goal that you're looking for. Now, so for that beginner going, dude, I just asked a basic question. Like, can you just give me the answer? I am giving you the answers. I think when people ask this question, what they want are, what is exactly the exercises that I should be doing, right? And how long should I be doing those? And how much weight should I be doing in order to get a specific result? You're putting the cart before the horse.
Yep.
The exercise, it's just a movement pattern. Your body doesn't understand. What I will tell you is you don't have to do that many of them to put on muscle, to get in better shape, to be more physically fit. So that's important to understand. Secondly, they're not resting and or recovering, I think, in the way that they need to be. That a lot has to do with the exercise program they've chosen to do. And also just an awareness of like, well, what should I be doing when I'm not at the gym? They think about like, there's that 1 hour of the day. What about the other 23 hours of the day? Without getting too bogged down in that, like you need to be supporting yourself nutritionally, right? So what are the strategies there? Understand the basic components. It's about, you need to be getting enough calories. Within those calories, you need to be getting adequate proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. Let's start with the calories, right? Let's just start with the basics, right? Are you getting enough to supply your body with the fuel to meet the demands that you're putting it through? That includes the recovery process. So in terms of strategies for the beginner, it's trying not to get lost in all the details of the actual workout itself. But when doing that, when you are in the workout itself, understanding the basic components. Again, if I had to set it up like a 3 to 5 day a week program, get yourself on a program that's sort of done for you is a great place to start, that hits all the things, right? That takes you through those basic movement patterns without making it too complicated. And to your point, Jeff, it's picking the stuff that helps you develop the skills because the skills are what make the pro bodybuilder different from the novice bodybuilder or the novice weightlifter at the beginning, like their ability to skillfully perform these movements, skillfully begin to progressively overload.
It's your foundation.
Manage those tempos. Yeah, it's get those foundations going. How do you do it? Like, hey, listen, we have programs here that people can get into, on it. Specifically, like people ask about that Red Dot Fitness Strong program all the time. Like, what is that? Is it max? It's not max strength. For some people, it will be max strength.
Absolutely.
Depending on where they're entering into their program, right? But it's not like a powerlifting program. It's a program that progressively builds using the principles we just discussed onto somebody's skill acquisition, right? Capacity building so that they can actually perform the work that they were asking to perform. And that builds progressively over time so that we've managed those workouts in recovery time for you, so you don't have to really think too much about that. But at the same time, we're providing you some education on what's happening during this time. And of course, yes, the exercises, the reps, the sets, how much weight you should be thinking about using, that's all in there. That is part of the bigger whole. So think of it as a bigger problem to solve than just what workouts I should be doing and how often I should be doing them. Again, to your point, Cece, it's like you don't do too much too soon, and understand that, to your point, Jeff, that skills are really important here. They're very, very important. You're asking your body to do things that it hasn't done before, and teaching it how to do those things right is uber important for both your short-term, your long-term success.
On that note, I don't remember which episode it was with Caleb, but I thought he did a really good job of breaking down how to enter your workout if you're just beginning. I think he was talking more specifically about the physique program, but breaking down the reps and sets and, where to start with your rep range and why, and then how you would approach it as you continue to progress. And he talks about what that progression looks like. So I don't remember which episode specifically it was. If it was, Muscle Matters, number 116.
116, 115, and even 117. All of those episodes handle these principles. And when you look at the titles of those, it looks maybe like it's a little bit more advanced because we're talking about physique training. But that's where most people are entering in. Dude. Yeah, we talk about our physique program in there too within our membership, and how that could be a really great place for somebody to start because it is so focused on the skills.
And Kayla, I think, even mentioned at one point, the majority of our online members were doing the physique program.
Yeah, and the reason why is because it looks very familiar. They're like, oh, I get what this exercise is. There's nothing crazy in there. It's your basic pushing, pulling,
Who doesn't want to get better naked, too?
There's
you
that
see
too.
Physique, you're just like...
Yeah, I think that's part of it too, is like people are expecting a certain result out of that program, and they'll get that.
Oh, yeah.
If they're applying things properly. But the way it's also built out, like this is a program where you're in a longer training cycle where you're hitting everything 2 times in a 9-day period, in an 8-day training cycle. So I don't want to confuse the beginner who's asking the question, what are the tips? I would just tell you
6
that
days on, 2 days off.
The way we've managed this is you hit everything twice, right? Which means you're not doing 3-hour workouts, and you're hitting things like you're hitting similar, let's just say, body parts twice per week, and you're hitting it with the proper amount of volume, reps, and sets, and you manage the intensity on your end, but you're doing that to elicit a very specific response, which is muscle growth, right? Hypertrophy, as well as capacity building for the newer lifter. The physique program is a great place for people to get involved, and that because it is that easy to follow. And when you walk into the gym, here's the other thing that I've noticed about it when I talk to people is like they're like, yeah, there's no crazy movements in there that I feel uncomfortable doing. Like it's all the basic shit. It's the basic machines. It's things like that. And especially if you're a novice, dude, you can get a great result from that. And then obviously it progresses depending on where you are in your own journey. So that's a really good point on that physique program and those like 115 and 116 with Caleb, because he really does a great job of breaking it down. I think it's very digestible for anybody, but particularly for the beginner.
How can I add variety to my exercise routines to improve overall fitness?
I get bored really easy, but I can also get into like this routine of just doing the same thing all the time. As long as I'm getting a result from it, like I will continue to do that. But I understand the need for variety. I was just talking about this, like getting outside and doing stuff. Like I loathe doing certain types of things inside the gym, right? Like cardio to me is like, I hate it. But when I'm out there on my bike or hiking or whatever, like I don't think about it as cardio. It good, I think about it as like I'm outside enjoying, nature, and I'm getting, I'm physically exerting myself. So I'm getting some type of a response from that as well, both emotional and physical. Like I get the need for variety. And I think we've tried to do a really good job as a company of making sure people have options for that because we recognize that they need variety.
Absolutely.
And they get bored really easily, and they get frustrated when they're not seeing a particular result or that they expect by choosing a very specific exercise program. And I think there's another part of that is we always try to we like to try to expose people to things that they would probably never do if we weren't there to coach them and help them and encourage them through it. Like
For sure.
examples would be like some kettlebell movements or like the Bulgarian bags or
Yeah.
things we do with the soupless bands and, just some movements that are generally, they might look weird to people.
Unconventional.
And very unconventional.
Which
and
is
as a result,
sad.
they're just not going to do them.
Yeah.
But when you can teach them, like, and oftentimes we've said this before, it's a skill, they recognize, holy shit, this is really challenging. Like it's got my heart rate up and my muscles are burning like
and I have to think about it too.
I got to think about it too. And man, that was really hard. I think people want to be pushed. So I think when they're looking, I know they do. I think that's a huge mistake that a lot of trainers make is they try to coddle or baby their clients on the premise that they're going to get injured or hurt. I think that's bullshit.
Yeah. Fuck that.
I think you have that concern, and obviously you manage it appropriately. But at the same time, like, no, people want and need to be pushed. So I don't want to say forcing them to do things that they don't want to do. That's not what I'm saying. Get them to do things, encourage them to do things that they've never tried before.
Yep.
And then we can decide whether or not they want to do it or not.
Exactly.
And more specifically, understand why they do or they don't want to do it. So coming back, like, how do you add that variety? I mean, how have you added variety to your program?
Well, I like the gym and I like everything that, one can do in the gym. So, I think the program that I'm on right now, I'm actually doing the physique program. And so for me, that's very different than what I've done in the past because it's the same thing over and over, but I enjoy it. So I've added some variety in my program by doing a little bit of metabolic conditioning once or twice a week max at the end of a workout. And, I'll use the implements that we have on the floor, whether it's medicine balls, kettlebells, barbells, and those types of things. But, it's more up tempo. Sometimes it's higher volume. Sometimes it's lower volume, heavier loads. But the other thing is too, sometimes I'll, see if somebody else wants to work out with me, or jump in with
That's a
them.
great point. Yeah.
So Kayla and her dad, they work out Tuesdays and Thursday mornings. Sometimes I'll do that, or I've come in on a Saturday and I've worked out with them for, 45 minutes, half an hour. And so that's fun as well because, there's somebody else that's quote unquote suffering, but, we're having fun and we're laughing and we're, working. But at the same time, in between those break periods, we're kicking back and joking and stuff like that.
Yeah, it brings a different energy.
Dynamic,
Like
yeah.
getting a workout partner or working out with your friends is a great way to add.
Because I
some
generally
variety.
work out by myself.
Yeah,
So
same with
that's nice.
me.
Yeah.
I haven't had a workout partner in decades. Probably because I don't think people would really want to work out with me.
I'm tired of sweeping them up off the ground.
Not because I work out harder than them, but because I'm quiet. I'm kind of a dick on the floor, I think, probably. But the point of that is working out with friends or getting you'll challenge one another. That adds some variety. Maybe they introduce you to a way to do a particular exercise or some new exercise that you haven't done before, even if you only do it once. Like it's just different. You're challenging your body differently. Does that mean you're not going to achieve the results from your physique program because you did a hammer dumbbell curl instead of a cable, dumbbell curl? Absolutely not. So the point of that is, it opens you up to some things that might expose you to some things. And by the way, I like that energy. I think that energy that when you guys are working out together brings to the floor, it encourages other people. It brings something to the floor for other people as well. So yeah, I think that's a good way of looking at it.
I love to suck at something.
Yeah, me too.
And the more that I just get added to accessory movements, whether it's a one-legged squat, reverse lunge, whatever you want to call it, right? Where I can squat really good on two legs. But we take one of these, we bipod it or we do a single lance or we do a reverse lunge. We start getting into more difficulties, whether it's balance, stability, etc. I like to suck at that. And I like to look like I suck at that. And then I like to over time progress to where I actually know what I'm doing. And it feels good to me. It feels like I've just created a skill. I don't really care what people think about on the first week of that movement. I don't.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. I am the same way. I recently, just in the last few years, sort of made a commitment to like being a white belt again in a lot of different things. And And just going on that journey and accepting like, I am not good at this, or I'm probably more specifically setting the expectation that I know I'm not going to be good at it walking into it. But then in times finding that, like, actually I am pretty good at this. Like, and I got maybe better at it faster than the average cat, or, I'm going to be really bad at this for a long time because I'm not committing the time or the effort because for whatever the reasons are, like I've made something else a priority, or I'm really not enjoying it that much, or I'm enjoying something more than this and it's taking my time away. So again, that's the prioritization thing, but I like being the white belt. I love at this point in my life, like knowing that I don't know and digging into it a little bit, and whether that's just kind of feeling around the movement or picking up something new or revisiting something I haven't done in a long time. I think it's a great way to add variety to your routine. Keeping this in mind that it's anything you do can be positive, right? If you make it that way. So it's not taking away by adding something different that you're not good at. In fact, it's quite the opposite. I mean, there's things when we're talking about like neuroplasticity and training your brain, it literally trains and changes in form and function when you're asking it to do different things. And I think that is a great way to change, obviously, physically what you're doing, but also mentally how you approach things. And so you just mentioned something there, like moving to like maybe more like a single leg or isolateral type movement. Like people want to like pick up some different, it's a mace or a kettlebell or, I don't know, a Bulgarian bag or something. They want to do something, different or weird or sexy with it, when adding variety to your workout can actually mean let's drop the weight. Let's increase some variability to this workout or to this particular movement pattern by as simple as let's just take one leg out of it. And don't get crazy. It's supposed to be done a fucking Bosu or a Dynadis.
No. Complicated.
If you've ever squatted on one leg, you realize all of a sudden, like, holy fuck, I'm weak.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people would be surprised at the strength increases and the muscle mass increases they can get from doing things like that, because now you're becoming maybe more proficient at that specific, at that specific movement pattern, which then adds to or exponentially adds to the basic squat in this case, right?
And that's the goal.
Yeah, and then so when you go back in terms of like whatever your goal was, strength, hypertrophy, or whatever, you recognize, holy shit, that really
feeling good
impacted me here. And as you've mentioned, and I was trying to state there, is just that like there's this mental piece of like, man, that sucked for a while. And I had to really put in the work, and I didn't like the way I looked doing it. And I didn't necessarily like the way I felt while I was doing it. But man, I gained a lot from that. And there's a certain intensity level that comes with that, like the mental fortitude plus the physical, exertion of having to go through it can mean a really challenging workout.
On that note, I'm listening to you and I'm thinking about, adding variety to the workout. While it might not be in the gym, that was me with walking in the mornings with the dog when we first got the dog. And now, I think I started out with 30-minute walks, and that could be challenging for me at times, just as far as like how my legs felt, how my feet hurt, how my hips bothered me, because I used to hate walking, and then over time it got to 45 minutes, and now sometimes it's an hour or more. And I actually look forward to it. I'll set my alarm at like 5:15, 5:30. And yeah, there's some mornings where I'm like, oh, okay, just let me lay here for a couple more minutes. But, the mental, I guess, mental component that I get relief or de-stress, and just being outside in the quiet, in the dark right now in the morning with the dog, there's something to it, and that's adding variety to the walk. Or sometimes I might do 2 walks in a day, and I might go out with Scott in the evening when he goes for his walk. And I mean, there's something about just deregulating your nervous system and just being in the moment and being quiet and not having to work really physically hard.
Yeah, I love that, because that is a huge part of, that's the exact reason I do it. It's like a down regulation time for me, but it is also about getting that heart rate up just above where it typically lies, at, at resting, or, I'm still, oxidative, aerobic state there. I'm just very low intensity, burning a few more calories, getting my steps in, but I'm also, out down regulating my brain, maybe sort of multitasking. I may be listening to a podcast and learning or something like that. But that's a way to add some variety. I think there's other things that people want to know, like, okay, that's very sort of idealistic, and I might be able to do that, but the whole isolateral stuff that doesn't really jive with me. Okay, listen, there's a lot of domains to fitness that you could add, to, or you could utilize to add variety to your workout. We could look at things like speed, agility, quickness, accuracy, balance, mobility. I already mentioned speed, the power piece, right? Most people think strength, the strength piece, like those are all things that you could work in different ways.
Yes.
And so you could add all kinds of stuff. Like
with
if you're
the same variation.
With the same, yeah. You don't have to work that hard. Like here's an example. Like, okay, so you know what? I'm looking to burn a few more calories, but I don't like this HIIT training that I'm doing, or like I don't want to join a class, or I'm not going to go out and run. I'm not going to ride my bike. Like I've done all like the HIIT routines and whatever. That's just getting a little boring. How could I kind of stack a few different skills and get a good result, and get some variability in my training that would add to, ultimately maybe my strength, my capacity, even my speed, my agility, my quickness. One thing I think I used to use a lot, and I got away from it in my own routine, but I used to use it with clients quite a bit, was the speed ladder. The speed ladder is something that I don't see being used very often. And I think a lot of it is because people just look at it and they kind of only know one or two things to do with it, and then they kind of get away with it. The other part is like, is there a place to set it up?
Yeah.
Like, do you have turf or whatever, or outside or whatever? The speed ladder was something that I used to throw in regularly, like to a warm up, right? Like that would be the warm up. We're working skills. We're also getting the heart rate up a little bit. We're working that fast twitch, slow twitch thing. We're getting the fuel systems or energy systems to kick on and do some different things. And it was a time where somebody had to focus, because that is a skill.
For sure.
Right? But that skill translates into a lot of other things. And so do the benefits of waking up the nervous system as a means to get more out of your strength and hypertrophy and or power routine. Exactly. So that's like something you could do. That's something I pulled out randomly. Going back to what you were saying, Jeff, about being a white belt at something or just sucking at something. There was a time where this one took a lot for me, but Pilates had just sort of really was making the scene. So we're going back 20 years, right? This is a long time ago. So we had, at the time, I was working in the big box gyms. We had a Pilates instructor. She was like the best that we had, the 5 gyms I was working in at the time. And so I got 6 weeks of Pilates sessions with her 2 times a week. I got to tell you, it felt awkward as hell. I was 250, 260 pounds, lifting a lot of weights, and kind of looked silly in there. And I felt silly in there as compared to what else was going on. But I have to tell you, like, I learned so much in that time about myself. And by the way, that shit was hard. Mm-hmm. It was hard for a while. And then it got to a point where I was like, I'm not really getting the feeling or like the kind of the result. I got beyond the skill building piece, and it turned more into like, okay, now I'm not getting the same type of workout. And that was more kind of an emotional piece for me, but it also didn't really suit what I was doing. But it was suit what I was going for longer term. Yeah. But my point of this is like I chose something that I sucked at, and I knew I was going to suck at. And so that's a way to add variability. The other thing is do something that you really fucking love that you haven't done in a while. Yes. Like get out to the basketball court, play some pickup basketball. I don't know, the fastest growing sport in
pickleball.
Pickleball. It's pickleball.
Yeah.
I mean, I go to the park, and there's literally 60, 70 people out there queued up to play pickleball. And I talked to Brandon the other night. He came into the gym. He's like, dude, I'm into pickleball. Like, and I'm like, I start cracking up. I go, yeah, you and everybody else. I go, he goes, dude, I can't get enough of it. He goes, I'm out there all the time. The problem is it's expensive to play. I'm like, bullshit. Go down to the park here, like at like 6:00 and jump in. Because there's a ton of people doing stuff like this.
6:00 in the morning as well. The park down the street. They're just as booked.
That's what I mean. Like, so people are always doing stuff like that. And I think the last thing is like, if you're trying to find something that, maybe fulfills a greater need, right? Like I always like to find stuff that provides some utility. Mm-hmm. You guys heard me talk about it before. Like I love jujitsu, right? I think the BJJ stuff is really great for a lot of reasons. It's not for everybody, But if you really want, you want to literally be a white belt at something and suck at something, go give it a try. Like you don't have to commit to it long term. Go just try it out and see if you like it or not. You'll find out about a lot of things about yourself real quick. You'll particularly find out a lot of things about your fitness, where you have it, where you don't. And then if you hate the jiu-jitsu, but you recognize, dude, my muscular endurance sucks, whatever else, then you can maybe start to apply some of those things in your workout routine that, again, would add some variability.
Yeah, Bikram yoga did that to me.
Same.
Dude, I'll tell you right now,
that was
man.
after the Pilates, but dude,
There were days where it would be my whole goal just to not leave the 90-minute hot room and just fucking lay there. I wasn't even doing the postures. I was like, no.
You and me both. Yeah.
I just need to breathe.
I know that sounds weird, like, especially with everything that's happened with Bikram and all that stuff in the last several years.
Let's just keep that out of it. We're just talking about the yoga.
That was after the Pilates for me. I was on the road a lot and I traveled, and I was basically living in Orange County out of a hotel, and there was a hot yoga place. And then I'd heard about it, but then I heard about Bikram, and it just kind of hit the radar for me. Like I didn't know much about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I went in there. I was having a tough time getting my workouts during the workday. It was so intense. And again, I was kind of traveling. When I say I was living in SoCal or in Orange County, like living is not really the right word. I was surviving down there and existing down there. So I would get up. There was a class at 5:30 in the morning. It's 90 minutes. So it would go 5:30 to 7, right? And I could manage to do that. It was fairly close to the hotel. But dude, like I learned a lot about myself in that class. And it wasn't for me for the long term, but I went to probably a dozen of these things in the time that I was in this particular location. And I got to tell you, like I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about where I needed to do some work, both internally and externally. And again, I put myself in that uncomfortable environment. So I think, like getting yourself out of the gym is an option, right? And getting yourself into a different environment. Or the other thing is like pulling somebody into the gym, like you said, like get a workout partner or invite somebody in or ask somebody if you can join them is a great way to get some variability. But again, there's all these fitness domains you can train. And I think a lot of people just get dead, they get their head set around, I got to strength train. Yeah, you do. there needs to be some type of a Metcon component. Yeah, you should probably be doing that too. Oftentimes there's power because people are into the Olympic weightlifting or the kettlebell work and things like that, especially on the CrossFit side of things or the plyometric side. There's so many things you can do, that's out there. None is better than the other.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? So you're never going to choose anything wrong. Just choose to do something different and see how that works for you. Because there's a never-ending list of things you can do that's different.
It's so funny. We talk about periodization, right? And we're talking about people get like, I want to power lift or I want to strength train. So they get into powerlifting. And it's like, 5, 6, 7 weeks go by and it's like, oh, it starts to get easier. So they stay there. Whereas like, that's not like you should be cycling out, right? Where it's the bodybuilder. Where, I got used to metabolic adaptation. I got used to lactic acid. So they stay there. Same thing with the endurance athletes. They stay there. They never want to go get uncomfortable. Where it's like, no, I'm really good at muscular endurance, but like my run rate max sucks.
Right.
So being able to be like, I know this is going to suck coming from here to here to here, but like being okay with the general 1-2 weeks sucking, getting better, and cycling out and consistently doing that through all of the aspects of fitness, you're going to be phenomenal.
Yeah, it can be a lot of fun. It can be a lot of fun. So I think, if you focus on that, like, what do you think is going to be fun? Go give it a try. If you hate it, cool. Move on to something else.
Move on to something else.